you get your start?
We all know when we do something wrong. We feel it instantly. And so did Norma. She knew it from the start, at that first appointment. She realized then that these were the rules of the game. She didn't have to follow those rules, yet she did. She wanted an opportunity to become famous. And she got it. She got even more than she could ever imagine. However, despite all her achievements and success, something was eating at her, an unresolved inner conflict. She couldn't forgive herself for what she did to get her chance to achieve her success. She couldn't accept it. Intuitively, she found a way to solve this moral conflict by dissociating from everything she ever did that she considered bad and wrong. Creating another identity was very helpful for Norma. She could blame Marilyn for all the wrong things she did and stay clean as Norma. It was her coping mechanism. "I'm not her," she kept telling herself. It was a lie she told herself over and over again until she forgot that it was a lie, and she started to believe it, sinking deeper and deeper into delusion.
You're thinking of Marilyn, her career.
Creating the personality of Marilyn Monroe helped her cope with guilt and shame. Norma desperately wanted to be liked by everyone, not just the film directors and the public, but every single person, be it a doctor or a flight attendant. Even her mentally unstable mother's opinion of her was important to her. Norma didn't seem to hold any grudges against her mother, who put her through so much suffering in her childhood. She repressed all her negative emotions and just wanted her mother to be proud of her. But looking at her mother's face, at her reaction to the photos, she realizes that she's not going to approve of her career. So she says in defense,
I guess there isn't any Norma Jean, is there?
As if trying to be a good girl for her mother. Her eyes seemed to be saying, "It wasn't me, Mom, I swear. It was her. It was Marilyn." Her mother doesn't recognize her, not because she disapproves of her career and life choices, but because she has been on medications for years and has very little grasp of reality. The doctors say they can't cure her.
They said my daughter was coming. I don't know you. Who are you?
Nonetheless, Norma takes her mother's reaction to heart. After this visit, Norma is convinced that having her second identity is necessary if she wants people to like her. She couldn't accept the part of herself that wanted all that fame, all that attention, who wanted to be seen and admired and loved by lots of people. She was ashamed of her own desires. Whenever she talks about fame, she dissociates.
Marilyn, you are a whore, a blonde tramp.
What's that got to do with me? There wouldn't be any Marilyn. And she's getting so famous now.
External validation was something she needed all the time. Growing up in an extremely hostile environment, she never got any love or acceptance. It makes sense that she would pursue these things in order to make up for her unfulfilled needs in her childhood. Nonetheless, her moral compass was telling her that the path she took was not a decent one. But that satisfaction, that pleasure of success, fame, and money was too good, too soothing to just let it all go. So she split herself in half and suffered the inevitable consequences that came with that decision. The reason Norma Jean found herself in this complicated relationship with two gay men, Cass and Eddie, was because they were the first ones to agree with her that Marilyn and Norma were two different people. That distinction was very important for her. She felt like they understood her.
They know I'm Norma, not Marilyn.
She falls in love with Cass. He was the first person who paid attention to her, who wanted to know her.
I wish I could just hide in your arms, forever and ever in your arms.
She says to Cass, but even he knows that it's not the whole truth. Only half of Norma wants this. Cass and Eddie sang praises to Norma, admired her, and at the same time reinforced her dissociation.
She is pretty, I guess. But it isn't me, is it? How about when people find out?
Oh, baby, we found out. And we still love you.
That's why she got so attached to them. They helped her maintain both personalities, shy and quiet Norma, and sensual, confident movie star Marilyn. Sadly, they were only playing with her, two spoiled young men who've tried everything in life, and were simply bored and always looking for another distraction from their sad existing.
But we're cursed, Eddie and me. We're juniors, with men who never wanted us.
Instead of working hard on building their acting careers, all they do is whine about their misfortunes. Corrupting a confused young girl, who was also a rising movie star, was just a form of their perverted entertainment. And a way to make some cash, by later blackmailing her husband with the nudes she took before she got famous. She gets pregnant and she's genuinely happy. At the same time, she's so ashamed that she got pregnant while not being married, that this lie comes out of her mouth automatically.
My husband and I have been trying for years.
She cares what everyone thinks of her. She needs everyone to think she's a good girl. We never saw that in the film, but Cass and Eddie obviously encouraged her to get rid of the baby.
You want a baby dead too?
Which must have come as a terrible shock for gullible Norma. At first, she's determined to keep the baby. She even says no to filming. But later, realizing she would have to raise the baby all by herself, just like her mother, she starts having second thoughts. She feels the need to visit her mother in a mental institution and tell her the big news. Seeing her mother not getting any better throughout all those years, she gets the idea that maybe she's mentally unwell too, and might repeat her mother's destiny and only harm her child. That's how she explains it to herself, justifying her fateful decision, calming her conscience. This time, she can't put the responsibility on her fictional character Marilyn, so she interprets her actions as sparing the misery for the future baby. This way, she comes out completely innocent. Another reason, which also could be the actual reason she got rid of the baby, is that she just couldn't miss the opportunity to appear in another big role on the screen. Fame and attention can be very addicting, especially to someone like Norma, who is a deeply insecure young woman. Of course, she was afraid of losing it all, of being replaced by another young actress, and being forgotten. What we see happening in the car and at the procedure is happening in Norma's head. She's imagining it, creating her version of the events. This is her way of explaining the wrongdoing to herself. That it's happening against her will, that she doesn't want to go through with it, that someone is forcing her, that she's the innocent victim, that she actually changed her mind and there are some cruel people who push her towards killing the baby. This is how a person with a victim mentality explains everything to themselves. They think they have no responsibility for the things they do, that life is happening to them. This way they can look innocent and feel guilt-free. Well, almost guilt-free.
I didn't mean to.
Yes, you meant to.
It was your decision.
Still deep inside, she knows that it's not what really happened. This tiny voice inside her knows the truth, the whole truth. On a date with Joe, Norma opens up to him. She expresses her intention to change the direction of her career, to settle down and have a family. Norma shares her feelings with him about not being able to unleash her full potential as an actress on the screen. She talks about her dreams of studying serious acting and performing on a theater stage. Joe is already impressed with her beauty and talent, and this conversation makes him think of Norma more seriously. He recently ended his sports career and is ready for marriage. And here is this beautiful movie star sitting across from him, and it turns out she's a completely different person on the inside. Delicate, sensitive, shy, wants to have children and live a quiet life. I'm one lucky man, he must be thinking in this moment. Not only do I get to have the most popular, most attractive woman alive to be with me, but I also have the opportunity to save her from these cruel people in Hollywood and have a quiet life with her. Joe is a straightforward guy. He takes everything at face value. He doesn't understand how complicated Norma's inner world really is. The things Norma said to Joe were her true desires. But at the same time, there was something stopping her from turning them into reality, as if a part of her had a firm grip on her old life and prevented her from starting fresh. Joe's marriage proposal came just at the right time for her. She was on the verge of having a breakdown. She was so disgusted by her over-sexualized image on the screen, so sick of what she did with all of those directors and producers behind closed doors. She regretted her abortion.
For this, you killed your baby.
She tried to suppress her emotions by shifting the blame on her fictional character Marilyn, but you can suppress and hide behind your alter ego for only so long. At that point, she desperately needed a change. She wanted someone to help her, to guide her. That's when she created Tearful Father, the voice of her conscience, her moral compass evaluating her every decision. An imaginary character who represented a vague hope for happiness in the future. By feeding this fantasy, she prevented herself from giving her heart to a real man, because no one could ever substitute her father, her daddy. This lifelong search of her father was preventing her from living a real life.
Yes, I guess.
If I can't have my real father, then okay, I'll settle for this man, she thought. But I'm not going to give him the whole me, of course. I'm not going to give my all to this marriage. She knew perfectly well what Joe's expectations of this marriage were. She knew they weren't on the same page, but she just thought she'd give it a try. Little did Joe know that he was doomed from the very start. No man would ever be able to outshine Norma's father, this picture-perfect image of him that she created in her mind.
That man is your father.
She tried and tried to find a father in Joe, but no matter how protective of her he was, she was never satisfied. She wanted support and guidance from him every step of the way, but that is just not realistic. After all, she's not a little girl anymore. She is a grown woman who needs to be able to stand up for herself and later to be able to care for and protect her children. While married to Joe, Norma also felt that something was missing. She lacked validation. When she was reading her poem to him, he looked bored, as if he was trying really hard to sit still and pay attention to her. He is a former sportsman. It's silly to expect that he's going to understand her creative work. We see this scene through her eyes, and she's so hurt by his reaction, by his remark. we feel sorry for her and we're tempted to actually see him as a husband who doesn't care about his wife. But that's not the case at all. In that moment, when they were sitting on the windowsill together, she needed him to be supportive of her creative work, and he did his best, but it wasn't enough, and it would never be enough. No man's love would ever substitute for the public's adoration and fame. She was used to getting so much positive reinforcement from her fans back when she was doing movies, and now all she gets is an enthusiastic,
"It's good, honey."
This scene, when she's offended by her husband's unenthusiastic remark, reminds me of Hunter, the main character in the film Swallow. The two characters are very similar because they are both insecure and expect their husbands to fulfill all their emotional needs, which is simply unrealistic. A woman needs to find other outlets to unleash her potential outside of her family. Instead of actively pursuing their goals, for Hunter, it was career of an illustrator. For Norma, it was serious acting, which would bring them fulfillment and help them with their self-esteem. They get offended at their husbands, making them responsible for their own sad emotional state and lack of confidence. I have 2 videos on the film Swallow, you can check those out. Being out in the real life makes all her insecurities come to the surface. Norma was not used to living a simple life, the life of ordinary people. She felt lost without a script. She didn't understand people. She was made fun of by her husband's family. They weren't mean to her, but she took it all very seriously. She couldn't take a joke. She couldn't laugh at herself. And she just closed off, started to avoid human interaction. Truth is, lots of people are socially awkward, and it's totally normal. You can learn to get better at communicating with people just by engaging in conversations. It comes with practice. This is what her husband tried to explain to her. Pay attention, concentrate, and it will come with practice. But his advice didn't help. She actually was focused only on herself, not on others. She was in the room speaking with Joe's relatives, but at the same time she was an observer, looking at herself, playing this role, and already evaluating whether or not she played it well or badly. Norma felt uncomfortable in a new environment. This time she was with real people. She was no longer with Cass and Addie, who constantly sang praises to her. With them she was confident she was doing everything right. And here she couldn't tell. She wasn't sure. The secret is just not to take it all so seriously. It's really not that big of a deal. These are her husband's relatives. They obviously meant well, and there wasn't any need to put up a guard or overanalyze their remarks. That being said, sometimes in-laws can be really unpleasant towards a new person coming into the family. A 2019's film, Swallow, comes to mind again. I have 2 videos on this film on my channel. In this film, a mother-in-law just blatantly insults her son's wife. In that case, it makes sense to create some boundaries, to let this person know that they cannot behave this way towards you, that you are not going to let them do it. Norma missed the respect and adoration she got from the public, from the press, back when she was making movies. She couldn't get it all from her family life. She wanted to go back to acting, but not on a theater stage as she told her husband. She took another stereotypical role on the big screen. She wanted to experience all those strong emotions again that came with releasing a new film where she played the lead. Having found out about the nudes Norma took early in her career, Joe is infuriated and loses his temper and hits her when he walks in on her lying half naked on the bed reading. She was probably remembering how Eddie and Cass taught her to love and enjoy her body. Since no one else is admiring her anymore, She might as well do it herself.
I have to work. It's my life.
She says, as if he's stopping her from acting. He's actually not against her acting. He just thought she wanted to get more serious roles, to step away from her over-sexualized image in movies. And now he sees that she's not doing anything to change that. In fact, her next role is going to be even more scandalous. She lies to her husband, pretending she's sorry, and gives him empty promises that she'd refuse to do the movie and pursue more serious roles. But she knew she wouldn't have the same success on a theater stage, and she desperately wanted to repeat her success. He was violent with her. It goes without saying that such behavior is unacceptable in a relationship. Joe proved that he wasn't fully developed emotionally because he failed to control his anger, his emotions. However, Norma was also responsible for allowing him to behave this way. She cannot stand up for herself, cannot own up to her mistakes. It's impossible to have an adult conversation with her. She is allergic to taking any responsibility whatsoever. She denies all her wrongdoings. By no means can his violent behavior be justified. Nonetheless, he was lied to, betrayed, and humiliated by his wife's actions. No man would ever want to be in his shoes when he was standing there in the crowd, watching his wife showing everyone her underwear. After her painful divorce from Joe, Norma found strength and determination to go down the path of serious acting and auditioned for the role in a play. She surprised everyone with her performance, including Arthur, the playwright. No one expected Marilyn Monroe to be so good. No one thought she had it in her. If only she continued down this path of serious acting and didn't get into another relationship so soon. If only she spent some more time to build her self-esteem, working on serious roles. She might have been able to leave Marilyn behind and make her work life more aligned with her own values, Norma's values. She might have cured herself of her dissociation. There wouldn't have been any more conflict. But she fell in love and saw an opportunity to hand over the responsibility for her life yet to another man.
You can whistle. You can call me Hey You.
Translation: I have no boundaries. I'm a total people pleaser. I'll do anything for you. I'll do anything to make you happy. Arthur fell in love when he saw Norma's hidden talent, her beautiful soul. They really had a special connection. Sounds like a perfect match. Especially since in her previous marriage, she lacked understanding and admiration from her husband. She seems to have finally found it all in one man. But for some reason, now she has a change of heart, and she wants to be the kind of woman whose main focus is her family and not pursuing her career. Ironically, she becomes the perfect woman for Joe, her ex-husband. Arthur is fascinated by Norma. He sees her as his muse. He can't help envisioning her on stage playing amazing roles. After all, she is his inspiration. She is his Magda. But Norma strongly opposes the idea of returning to acting. However, no one is forcing her to go back. No one is asking her to make this decision now. But she blows the problem out of proportion. For now, while she's expecting, and for later when she has to take care of the baby, it's definitely the right choice to keep her focus solely on motherhood. But maybe later she might want to go back to work. There's no need to make this decision now, especially after she has proven to everyone that she can play dramatic roles too. She fails to communicate her intention to her husband.
Don't make me go back.
This doesn't sound very serious. It sounds more like she's being coy about the whole thing, as if she actually kind of wants to do it, but too shy to admit it. It's impossible to have a serious conversation with her. When she realizes that he would love her to be on stage again, that would make him happy, she feels the need to do just that, to please him, to be a good girl to her daddy. When she hears praise, she's happy. Whenever she does something wrong, she's upset. Her mood is ruined. And since this is real life, since this is not acting, she can't blame it all on Marilyn. Now it's her own mistakes. She's been dodging her responsibilities for so long that now it feels so new and so terrifying for her to admit to even the smallest mistakes. Every little thing can serve as a trigger for her. Anything can upset her. For instance, cutting these flowers too short is proof for her that she's incapable of doing anything right. She's happy one minute, she's about to put the flowers in a vase for the guests, and then she's upset because she cut the flowers too short, which tells her that she's worthless, incapable of doing anything right. Every time she makes a mistake, it's not an opportunity for her to learn from this and do better next time. It's proof that she's a worthless human being. She loses the baby in a very symbolic manner. When she fails to stand up for her own current goals, which are giving birth and just focusing on motherhood, she neglects herself, neglects her baby. Inside, she has already given up. She has admitted to doing whatever her husband wants her to do. And by doing that, she failed to provide emotional security for herself. Her worries that someone is again pushing her to do what she doesn't want to do are really unfounded. No one is pushing her. She has her own free will and she can say no anytime. But she doesn't know that. She doesn't think this way. For viewers who are confident, it's strange to see her overreact this way and see her get so emotional. It's clear for people with healthy boundaries and for those who don't struggle with insecurities, who can easily say no when they want to. And it's clear for all those people that it is unnecessary for her to experience all these emotions. But for her, it's not this way at all. Her saying no muscle is so undeveloped because saying no means taking responsibility for her life, which she has never done before. Therefore, she agrees to whatever other people are encouraging her to do and keeps being a child, basically. And a child cannot be a mother. A child cannot even support herself or himself. A mother needs to feel secure. She needs to provide that security for her baby. And how can Norma feel secure when she cannot stand up for her own needs? During her previous pregnancy, she also didn't feel secure. She wasn't married, she was involved with 2 gay men who wanted her to get an abortion. This time, she treats Arthur's desire to see her on stage performing as a form of betrayal too. This is how she sees it. He wouldn't accept me if I'm not an actress anymore. Which is a possibility. But what if she tries to explain her point to him about staying away from acting for a while, which is a totally natural desire of a pregnant woman, by the way? What if he understands and he's okay with it? It's also a possibility. She had to at least try. Arthur's friends come to pay a visit. Norma is reluctant to spend time with them. Previously, she had a negative experience communicating with her ex-husband's family. In fact, it wasn't negative, she just labeled it as negative. And she decided that avoiding communication is a working strategy that would make her feel safe. Arthur understands that Norma is hiding away because she's afraid of making a bad impression on the guests, and he's trying to reassure her that there's no need to fuss and worry so much, that she's already doing great. But Norma is convinced that guests hate her and that they came to see just him. Her mind is set, her body language signals no, But it doesn't stop Arthur from convincing her again to go to the beach with them. She doesn't want to go. He's pushing her to do what she doesn't want to do. He knows that she can be persuaded into doing anything.
Darling, come down there with me. Will you? They're waiting.
They're waiting. So what? She's not ready to deal with it. There's no need to force anyone into doing something they don't want to do. Even though her worries are unreasonable, because his friends actually like her, she still needs to come to this conclusion on her own. She's not there yet. She fails to communicate this to her husband. She just can't. She doesn't know how, because she never even tried. It's much easier for her to agree with him and to deal with the consequences later, because everything comes at a cost. Another film that I did an analysis on comes to mind. It's called Mother, where the main character is just like Norma. She fails to communicate her needs to her husband. She says yes reluctantly and then experiences excruciating pain. This video might be very helpful for you if you struggle with protecting your boundaries and saying no. I believe that Arthur's intentions were pure. He sees her struggle with communication and he wants to help her, but unfortunately his methods don't work. He should have just let her deal with this on her own, because later, after the miscarriage, she unconsciously starts blaming him for what had happened. She also started punishing him by destroying their marriage with her attitude, behavior, and life choices.
Business of yours is my life.
Again, she's not taking out any lessons from the tragic events in her life. Instead, she chooses the easiest options. Find someone to blame, numb her feelings with alcohol and drugs, and go back to playing the same stereotypical characters in films. The longer she's doing this to herself, the blurrier reality becomes for her. As always, she's defending herself in her head, but this time she slips and says it out loud.
It isn't sexual. Between the president and me. It's a meeting of our souls. Oh, did I say that out loud?
The rest of her life starts going in a downward spiral until it comes to a tragic ending. I think that she gave up on life way before that day when we see her learning the news about Cass's death. I think it started way before that. I think it started right after that terrible miscarriage. She just seemed to have given up on life, and by making all of those decisions that were slowly ruining her emotional state, ruining her body, there is no reason for us to ever give up hope, give up on life. So that's all I have to say about this film. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video was somewhat helpful and mildly entertaining for you. If that's the case, please show your support by giving me a comment. You don't even have to like it, just comment like, hey you. I'll be back with a new video very soon. Bye.